Hey guys, it's Kayla and I'm back with another video. Today we're doing my April book wrap up. I'm going to talk about the 25 books I read in April and how I rated them. If you'd like to see more in-depth book reviews or more book content from me, definitely check out my Bookstagram and Book Talk because I post almost daily on both of those. I'm going to hop straight into it because I have a lot of books to talk about, but please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, leave any comments down below, and subscribe to my channel if you are new. First book of the month was Curious by Jess Savage. This was an MFF romance. Overall, this book was alright, not my absolute favorite, but it wasn't absolutely terrible. It was worth a read for the spice and like the emotional buildup throughout the book, but it was a little bit too angsty and the characters were a little bit immature for my taste. Again, I like the spice, I like the angst, but it was just a little bit too much for me by the end of it, and I probably will not continue on with the series. Next book was A Little Bit Wicked by Melissa Foster. I really enjoyed this one. Justin and Chloe have been friends for a while. Justin has a little bit of a bad boy vibe, and Chloe is not looking for that type of man. She thinks she should be with more of a suit type guy who has his life together, but she realized her perfect man is Justin, and he's been right in front of her all these years. Honestly, Justin was so sweet, so swoony. I loved his character so much, and I love the relationship they built together. Also, this book did not have a third act breakup. The major plot point at the end did not have to do with their relationship. It was kind of an outside factor, and the ending was them working through it together instead of them breaking up, and I really enjoyed that aspect of this book. Book 3 was Beautifully Broken Pieces by Catherine Cowles. This was the first book in the Sutter Lake series. I ended up listening to this whole series this month on audio, and this was book 1. Taylor is experiencing grief from the loss of her mother, and she needs to get away from her life in LA, so she goes to the small town of Sutter Lake. She kind of instantly feels at home there and decides to kind of settle down there for a while, and that's when she meets Walker. After losing his first love, Walker is not really open to finding love again, but he meets Taylor and he's instantly interested in her and determined to become friends and then more. This was a really sweet small town romance with kind of like second chances for both of the main characters. I really loved how Walker and his family were so determined to like win Taylor over and make sure she found a home in Sutter Lake. My next book was an arc, and it was FLIRTE by ADRIANA Locke. I'm pretty sure this was my top read of the month. I absolutely loved it. I love every single book that I've read of Adriana Locke's, but this was book 1 in a new family series. This was a fake dating, friends to lovers, workplace romance. Brooke and Moss work together at his family's company. Brooke accidentally posts on her social media that she needs a fake relationship, a fake boyfriend for her family's party. Moss's brothers decide to play a little bit of matchmaking and have him respond to this ad. They meet up. He decides to be her fake boyfriend anyways, but they end up having feelings for each other, and they were both so sweet. I loved this book so much. The family elements, the relationship that they were building together, and the spice, it was all so good. I'm already counting down the days to book 2. I think it comes out in June, so I cannot wait. My next read was Wait for Me by Amy Dawes, and this is kind of a funny story. I thought I read this book years ago, just seeing the title and the cover. I thought I already read it, but apparently I have not. So finally read it, and I really enjoyed it. Kate Smith writes spicy romance, but she's in a little bit of a writing slump, but she's finally found her writing, her mojo again in the Tire Depot Customer Care Center. She sneaks in every day to write her book thinking no one will notice, but Miles Hudson definitely notices her. They form a quick friendship, which ends up turning into so much more. This is a little bit of a secret identity romance. She keeps some things hidden from him, but eventually it all comes out, it all comes to light, and they end up working through it. I really enjoyed this one. They have a lot of great banter. The spice was really good as well, so this was definitely a top read of the month for me as well. Next we have Omega's Obsession by Sarah Blue. This was an arc read for me. I read book 1, Heat Haven, a few months ago, and I really enjoyed it, so I was looking forward to Omega's Obsession. This is an Omega-verse romance. Liv is an Omega, and she's been in love with Dean DeRossi her whole life, but her brother's best friend thinks she's off limits and wants to stay away to protect her. Liv inserts herself into his pack, and River and Grayson are instantly in love with her and determined to convince Dean that Liv is the Omega for them and they need her in their lives. So this was just so good. I love Omega verses for the pack dynamic. They all have such different personalities, but they all come together so perfectly. I think Grayson was my favorite character in this book just because he's so sweet to Liv and really just constantly shows Liv how much he loves her. This was a super cute Omega-verse romance, and I'm already looking forward to book 3 in this series. Next I read Come Back For Me by Corinne Michels. Connor and Ellie spent one unforgettable night together 8 years ago, but Connor left the next day to join the Navy, and Ellie ends up trapped in an abusive relationship. Connor ends up back in Sugarloaf and sees his angel from all those years ago, and at the same time Ellie realizes she needs to leave her abusive relationship to protect her and her daughter. This book was super angsty and emotional, but I really enjoyed it. I loved how their relationship developed throughout the story. This was fairly low in spice, but I still really enjoyed it, and the story was really really moving. I always love books that have the concept of fate in them, and this one definitely had that. Next, I read book 2 in the Sutter Lake series, and it was Beautifully Broken Life by Catherine Cowles. Liam needs a break from his rock star life in Los Angeles. The pressure has just become a little too much for him, and he's experiencing writer's block. Tessa is on the run from her past, but she's starting to settle down in Sutter Lake. But Liam's rock star status is a threat to her and her safety, but Liam is ready to do whatever it takes to show her that she is safe with him, and he'll do anything to protect her. Another great small town romance. All of the books in this series were fairly low in spice, but they were all really sweet and I really enjoyed them. Then I read book 2 in the Arrowwood Brothers series, Fight for Me by Corinne Michels. I didn't enjoy this book as much as the first one, but I still enjoyed it. I think just because a lot of the plot was pretty predictable. A lot of it was set up in book 1, so you kind of knew what was going to happen, but I did still really enjoy it. A lot of angst and emotion, again, like book 1, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading the last few Brothers books. I didn't get to them this month, but I definitely will soon. Then I read Beautifully Broken Spirit by Catherine Cowles. This was book 3 in the Sutter Lake series and a brother's best friend romance. Tuck is known for being a player. He doesn't think he will ever settle down. Jensen has gone through a lot in the last few years and is raising her son Noah on her own. Tuck and Jensen have known each other their whole lives, but kind of stay away from each other because they know they shouldn't. But when they need a little bit of stress relief, they turn to each other, and you can probably guess how it turns out. Tuck thinks he needs to stay away from her, but he can't resist. Really good brother's best friend, single mom romance. I really enjoyed this one. Then I read Close Quarters by KANDI STEINER. This was definitely one of my top reads for the month. Aspen is planning on backpacking Europe for the summer. Her boyfriend is working on a luxury yacht, and she's there to say goodbye to him. That's when she meets the hot older billionaire who owns the boat, Theo. Theo ends up inviting her to join the crew for the summer as his personal photographer and stay on the boat with them. Lots of drama in this love triangle romance, but I really enjoyed it. This book is probably not for everyone. There's tropes that people don't really enjoy, so look up content and trigger warnings. But I absolutely adored Theo. He took her on a shopping spree. He bought her a nice new camera. He was so sweet, and we just love the broody billionaire type vibe. He fits that perfectly, and I really enjoyed this book. Then I read Leave Him Loved by Harlow Ray. Harlow Ray is one of my favorites, and I'm just making my way through her backlist. This is a city girl meets country boy romance. Audria moves to Bampton Valley for the year to work as a teacher because she couldn't find a job in the city, so her plan is to stay for a year, then get out. Born and raised in Bam, Reeve has only known the small town life. Reeve and Audria meet. They're determined to just be friends because they know she's leaving at the end of the year, but he shows her around Bam, and the feelings bloom between them, and Audria thinks maybe she will stay in Bampton Valley if Reeve can get the nerve to ask her to stay. This book was lower on the spice, but it was so sweet. I absolutely loved these two together, and small town romance just has my heart, and this was no exception. My next read was Beautifully Broken Control by Catherine Cowles. This was probably my favorite book in the Sutter Lake series. Kennedy moves to Sutter Lake to get away from her past, and she's kind of getting used to a small town life. She's working several jobs to get by while also volunteering because she wants to give back to the world. Kane needs a break from city life, so he goes to Sutter Creek where his friends live and decides to buy a house there to kind of have a place to escape to. He meets Kennedy, is instantly drawn to her, and wants to give her the world. Kennedy is hesitant because she doesn't want money or materialistic things, and that's kind of what Kane represents to her. Kane is so protective of Kennedy, but he's also learning when he needs to step back and not just take control of her life. Both of these characters were just my favorite individually in the series, and then them together was absolutely perfect. Next book was a reread for me, and it is The Broken One by Ruth Cardello. I read this book years ago and remembered enjoying it, so I wanted to go back to it so I could read the rest of the series as well. I think this book is so cute. Heather Ellis is a single mom, and when her daughter loses her stuffed animal, and she makes a post online asking people to help find her daughter's stuffed animal and return it back to them. Sebastian ends up finding the toy, and his mother makes him return it to Heather and her daughter. But Sebastian is hurt, he's grieving, and he does not want to let a woman in his life, especially a woman with a child. But once he falls hard, and this has a little bit of an insta-love romance vibe, which I enjoy. I know it's not for everyone, but I thought it was really cute, and it's a fairly fast-paced romance. I think you can get through it pretty quickly. Last book in the Sutter Lake series is Beautifully Broken Redemption. This was a marriage of convenience romance, which is one of my favorite tropes, and then especially in a small town romance, it was perfect. Anna finally feels like she's getting her life back on track. Her sister is moving to her small town. She has a good job. Things finally just feel right for her until one phone call changes it all. She's not used to relying on other people, but when facing tragedy, she's kind of forced to let other people in. Mason is one of the people who steps up to help, and he offers to fake marry her to help her win custody of her niece and nephew. He really steps up because he's so into Anna, and he's willing willing to do anything to help her, and obviously feelings develop between these two, and I just loved the fake marriage trope. It's just one of my favorite tropes, like I said, and seeing it in this small town romance, I thought it was perfect. Such a great end to this series, and I'm definitely sad that it's over. I was so excited to see this next book drop. It is Maxim by Samantha Whiskey. She is the queen of just dropping new releases with no warning. She doesn't preview them or anything. They just pop up and they're there. When I saw that this book went up, I screamed. I was so excited. I feel like this has been a long time coming. Just kind of known in the last few books that these two characters would end up together. So now that it's finally their story, I was so happy. Maxim is a top hockey player. He's the top scorer in the league, but he has a case of the yips. Evie needs a place to stay while her best friend's studying abroad, and she ends up staying with her best friend's brother. With the forced proximity, sparks begin to fly between Maxim and Evie. They just can't resist each other. Again, I knew their story was coming. It's been building up for so long, and I feel like she did it so perfectly. Highly recommend this brother's best friend's forced proximity romance, especially if you love hockey romance. Samantha Whiskey has some of the best. Then I read The Wild One by Ruth Cardello. This is a book 2 in the Creasy Billionaire series. This book gives me similar vibes to Frenched by Melanie Harlow. Ren goes to Paris to kind of get away from her life and to have some fun. She meets Mauricio and kind of knows he's a player, so thinks she needs to stay away, but he offers to show her around Paris for the week and give her a good time, and good times they do have. They have a really quick whirlwind romance. The Romano brothers fall fast and they fall hard. Really enjoyed this book, and I can't wait to get to book 3 in this series because there's been a little bit of mystery woven in through all the books, and I'm excited to see how that all wraps up in book 3. Then I read Drive Me Wild by Melanie Harlow. I actually read book 2 in the series years ago. Not sure why I didn't read book 1 or the rest of the series, but I'm finally diving into it. Griffin Dempsey likes his life for the most part. He owns his own business. He gets to play old man baseball with his friends. His mom and his sister live nearby as much as they drive him crazy. He thinks he's happy with what he has where he's at until Blair Beaufort crashes into Bellamy Creek and flips his life upside down. They end up being forced together. Blair is staying with Griffin while he fixes her car, and I really love these two together. They will definitely drive you wild, pun intended. Melanie Harlow just always kills it with the banter, with the spice. Everything about this small town romance was so good. Next book was an arc, and it was Make It Rain by SHANNA HANDEL. She's a comfort author for me. I love all of her books, especially the Bachman brothers. Her new release, Make It Rain, is an age gap dad's best friend romance. Lang is at a club trying to scout women for his new reality TV show when he sees a woman dancing on stage, and he realizes the woman is his friend's daughter who dropped out of school recently. Pulls her down from the stage, kind of teaches her a lesson before offering her a job. Winter ends up working for Lang as his personal assistant, and he has her move in with him because she doesn't have a place to stay. The spice is so good, as always, in a SHANNA HANDEL book. Really enjoyed this age gap romance, and I'm already looking forward to SHANNA HANDEL's next release. My next read was Do Me a Favor by Jessica Kane. This is her newest novella. Jessica Kane's novellas are always a wild time. If you know, you know. If you just read the description of this book, you'll get a sense of the plot. It was really wild. Not necessarily my favorite Jessica Kane novella, but it's definitely spicy and has all of the typical Jessica Kane novella elements. Then I decided to reread one of my favorite series from last year, and it is the Wolf Hotel series by K.A. Tucker. This is 4 different books focusing on one couple, which I'm normally not a big fan of, but this series is just so good. Abby decides to go to Alaska for a summer job after her ex-fiance cheats on her. He ends up becoming the personal assistant of Henry Wolf, the billionaire hotel owner, and these two put you through it. There is so much angst and emotion throughout these 4 books. There is also so much spice. This is some of the spiciest non-dark romance I've ever read. So many different spicy elements, lots of group activities. I just love everything about this series, honestly. The only thing that would make it better was if we got his point of view in a little bit more of an epilogue, because it ends very quickly and abruptly, but it does end in a happily ever after, and I just really love their story. It's such a good billionaire romance series. Last but certainly not least, we have Make Me Yours by Melanie Harlow. This was another reread for me. Book 2 in the Bellamy Creek series. Cheyenne has been in love with the guy next door, her brother's best friend, for as long as she can remember. Cole Mitchell is a single dad who's been through a lot, and he clearly is facing some trauma and emotion from his past. But he finally sees the girl next door, his best friend's sister, and realizes she is the one for him. Another book where the main characters put you through it. There is a lot of emotion and angst throughout this book, but I really enjoyed it. I honestly never read a Melanie Harlow book that I didn't like, but this is definitely one of my favorites from her. Okay, wow, I just talked for forever, but those are the 25 books I read in April and how I rated them. This was a pretty good reading month for me. I read a lot of books that I really enjoyed, and I'm already looking forward to all the good books I'll read in May. family. That's gonna be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and leave any comments down below. That really supports my channel and helps my channel grow. And of course, if you're new, don't forget to stick around and subscribe. I talk about books all the time on my channel, or you can check out my Bookstagram and Book Talk if you want to see more book content from me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in my next one.